Hey everybody, my name is Alex Graham, and I'm going to be doing a presentation today about the culture of Hungary. And the reason I picked Hungary is because my dad is actually from Hungary, and he's said to be 100% Hungarian, which would make me 50%. I'm not sure that I believe I'm that much, but I'm going to be looking into doing the DNA test on Ancestry.com pretty soon, just because I'm curious to see just how much Hungarian blood I have in me. But regardless, I just thought it'd be interesting since my family has a little bit of history from there to do my presentation on that. So I'm just going to jump in. So here's my introduction slide. You can see on the introduction slide some things I'll be talking about during the presentation. First, we're going to start with an overview of Hungary, which will include some basic knowledge on the country and its people. From there, we're going to be doing a comparison of the culture between Hungary and the United States using the Tromp 7-dimension model. This model is going to help us see the similarities and differences between the culture of Hungary and the United States, and it'll also show how communication, motivation, and teamwork will be affected when both these countries are working together. And at the end, I'm going to include a biblical perspective on just working with other cultures, just regardless of where you're from or where you're going to be working. So here's my overview slide of Hungary. You can see on the map that Hungary is located in Europe, but it's more specifically south centrally located in Europe. Hungarians lived in a state of socialism government until the 1989. The government toppled, and out of it came Hungary's republic, which operates with the principles of democracy and market economy. The people of Hungary exercise their power through elected members of parliament, and overall they have a somewhat similar government to that of the United States, which is noticeable from their branches of government and also their checks and balances system. Of their population, they have about 10 million people that live there, just under 10 million, and 92% of that population are Hungarians. So not a whole lot of international people living there. And of all of the people that live there, 99.6% of people in Hungary speak the Hungarian language. Only about 16% of the country speak English, which I could see causing a little bit of complications for Americans that are going to be working and communicating with Hungary. So here's a little bit of background about the Tromp 7 dimensions model. The model was created in order to help other people understand the national culture differences in organizations that operate with other countries. There can be many cultural differences when two companies work together, and Tromp 7-dimension model helps people to better understand those differences. The model was created by gathering data over 10 years from different countries and different respondents through the uses of surveys that ask questions based on dilemmas or contrasting tendencies. This survey was delivered to more than 15,000 managers in 28 countries, and of those 15,000 managers, there were at least 500 responses per country that were received and used to create the distinctions between different nationalities, which means that there was over 14,000 responses of data that were built into this model. And you can see there a picture of Franz Trompenaars. Here you can see the actual 7 different dimensions, and so I'm just going to go and talk about each one briefly. So the first one consists of universalism versus particularism, where universalism is about rules and guidelines, and particularism is about exceptions and taking situations case by case, rather than having everything fall into the same set of rules. The second one is individualism is all about the rights of the individual and allowing them to be responsible for themselves and to be accountable. Communitarianism is about the rights of a group, and it puts responsibility and accountability on the entire group rather than just the individual. Specific versus diffuse is all about being direct to the point when you're specific, and diffuse is more focused on building positive relationships before getting to the business side of things. Neutral is about managing your emotions and keeping your emotions and body language very neutral. Emotional is the complete opposite of that, where people that are more emotional are open to building trust and using emotion to communicate with others. Achieve status is about gaining status through achievements, and ascribe status is about gaining status through seniority. Sequential time focuses on one thing at a time and is about being punctual and setting and keeping clear deadlines, where synchronous time is more about being flexible at work and allowing others to be flexible on projects and tasks. Inner-directed is about allowing others to take control of their own learning and developing their own skills. And outer direction is about providing others with the tools they need to succeed in their job and giving people direction and feedback to let them know that they are on the right track. These 7 dimensions make up the Tromp model that will be used to compare the culture of Hungary to the culture of the United States. So here you can see the graph that compares Hungary and the US using the model, and you can see from here that there are a lot more similarities than there are differences. If you notice the numbers next to each dimension, this represents a question that was asked in the Tromp survey to identify where each country fell on the spectrum of each dimension. All of the positive correlations between the countries are a great representation of the cooperation that could take place between the two countries when working together. However, the biggest difference, which is the achieved versus ascribed difference, would require some extra attention from both parties. Achieved shows that the US is much more focused on rewards and recognition for performance, and they believe that you are what you do. Where Hungary is different, and they are more focused on being valued for who they are, and their power, title, and position mean a lot to them. So going forward, this could cause some trouble in the natural synergy that would exist between these two countries in terms of communication, motivation, and teamwork, but we'll look into that a little more. So here you can see the slide on communication. So when communication takes place between citizens of these countries, I believe culturally they will mesh well with each other due to all of their similarities. For one, both countries share similar ratings in neutrality, which means they both manage their emotions and body language well, and they like to stick to the point. They also score similarly in being specific, which shows that both parties are direct and to the point, and they focus on providing clear instructions, processes, and procedures. What may worry some is the difference between the US and Hungary on the achieved versus ascribed status. The United States is very focused on achievement and believes that you are who you are based on what you have done and what you will achieve. Hungary is much more ascribed, and they believe that title and seniority play a big role in a person's status. So I could see this being a little bit of a problem if both parties do not send the proper person when doing work together, but all in all, I think the communication between these countries should mesh really well. Next, we have motivation. So the motivation factors between these two countries are a bit different in terms of what they like to achieve. The United States is all about their reward and recognition for performance, and they only use titles when it's relevant. Hungary is different in that their motivation because they believe that people should be valued for who they are, and their power, title, and position matter a great deal to them. This should be kept in mind when each country, or what each country respects more when doing negotiations and interacting. There is always a need to understand key elements that allow greater understanding of motivational context between countries, and I believe that the Hungary and the United States similarities in both being outer directed also show they both do not worry about natural forces that are out of their control, but they worry on operating within the uncontrollable environment on the things that they do have control over. So this allows both countries to focus on controlling the same types of things rather than one trying to control natural forces and the other being against it. Both countries do not try to control outer forces, which means their motivations will be similarly directed, and they should make a good combo if they can be aware of their achieved versus ascribed differences. So lastly, we have teamwork. So I believe that, like communication, both these countries share a lot of similarities that encourage teamwork between each other, but they both also score very high on individualism, which means that they believe in personal freedom and achievement, and they both really desire praise and reward for individual performance. Both countries also like to make their own decisions and use their own initiative. Teamwork between these countries would work well, but even for these highly individual countries, it is also important that both these countries manage their own teams well when dealing with each other to make sure that the culture they display to each other is consistent across all employees. All it takes is one employee to offend a person from a different culture that can make things very complex when working together. The bottom line is that I do believe these countries would display good teamwork, but personal goals could interfere, so it is very important to keep each country's degree of individualism in mind when dealing with each other. So here's my biblical perspective slide. And so I wanted to focus on 1 Corinthians 12 through 13, which says, "For even as the body is one and yet has many members, and all the members of the body, though they are many, are one body, so also is Christ, for by one Spirit. We were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit." So I really like this verse a lot because it helps me to understand that although people of different cultures may be different, it is important for Christians to understand that we were all created by God, and because one of us may be the foot or the hand of the body, although we are different parts, we are still very important parts that make up the body as a whole. It is important to keep this in mind when analyzing the differences across cultures and remembering that being different is not so bad, but diversity is something that should be embraced. The actions I take from this would be to always assume good intentions from people from other cultures, even if I don't always fully understand why their culture is the way that it is. If I can do that, I should be able to work well with just about anybody. So here's my conclusion. And so all in all, I believe that the similarities between the countries far outweigh the differences. And although I spent a good amount of time talking about the differences between the countries, there are the focuses people need to have, as the rest should come natural. These countries will have great communication and similar motivations and teamwork when working together. And although they are different cultures, their people are nearly identical according to the Tromp model, with just the one major exception of achieved versus subscribed. I think these countries mess well and should focus more on doing business together. I just want to thank everybody for listening, and I appreciate working with everyone throughout this entire class, and I hope all of you had a really great summer. This is actually my last course of my MBA, so I'm really excited. On Tuesday, school will be done for me, and I'll be graduating and walking in December, so I hope to be walking with a couple of you at the end of this year, and I just want to say thanks for all the communication through the discussion board post, and really enjoyed working with all of you. So thanks for listening, and just real quick, I'm going to show you my reference slide, and that'll be the end of my presentation.